as long as we're not in a hurry. That really spoils it. I like how they squat down on their haunches, like the small animals they are, and examine some perfectly nondescript stone as if it is a precious gem. Likewise, leaves, feathers, bugs, cracks in the sidewalk, small plants growing out of the cracks in the sidewalk, and ants coming and going from the crack to some secret world beneath, doing important ant business. Somewhere along the way, we learn to subsume the details. As grown-ups, we're busy, that's true, and we learn to look at the big picture, which has its merits. Who doesn't want to see the forest, even at the expense of the trees? Not to mention the leaves and beetles and fungi, the noisy mynah birds, and the silent drop of dew suspended in space, which magically holds an entire upside-down world, if only one looks closely enough. I used to think of my life, if not the forest, then at least the tree. My life seemed to be of a whole, composed of chapters and branches, memories from early childhood, school years, romance and sexuality, work life, friendships, adventures, joys and heartbreaks, that good old dog, the long ago garden, family gatherings, and the change in the generations from my grandmother's house to my mother and my aunts, comings and goings. It helps anchor me, this story of my life, gives context, teaches new lessons as needs arise. But memory is an endlessly edited narrative, not the experience itself. I think my life is lived in moments that I have strung together, like daisy chains we made from clover flowers when I was a child and sat cross-legged in the summer grass. I have come to think it's all moments, that what seems to be big stuff is the story wrapped around all the small stuff. Not small as insignificant, but small as discrete, particular. The first wail, the last breath. The particular angle of the autumn light as I drank hot chocolate with my mother in Paris, the only time I've ever been to Paris. Watching a mole swim across a small creek and disappear into the bank. The sound of a piano through the open window. Sharing dessert with a dear friend, each bite carefully measured, savored all the more for the sharing. Sometimes that's what I miss most in this time of pandemic. There is so much suffering and loss. It feels like it will swallow the world. But it is the small things that lie close to my heart. There are the obvious, a meal with friends, a warm embrace, but also the accidental encounter, the unexpected smile, the small kindness, the item dropped that I would usually retrieve, the child learning to ride a bike who just needed a little nudge to get over that hump, the group photo I would offer to take, the conversation struck up between strangers. Not impossible these days, but rarer. The pandemic itself is anything but small, and yet it too is composed of life and breath and loneliness and fear. It is economic collapse, and it is a single cello. A million moments strung together, more connected than we ever knew. When I do my Tai Chi alone now, I have to clear my mind and be present for each step. I almost never manage to do this and find myself suddenly lost in the middle of familiar movements when my brain has skittered off to plan something or have an imaginary conversation with an otherwise real friend. Suddenly, I am turning and have no idea what comes next. It is, of course, the point, this need to be present, to quiet the mind and breathe. It's also hard to go slow. My goal-oriented, busy self wants to check this box off the list and get on with the day, which is decidedly not the point of Tai Chi. To slow, I imagine myself doing Tai Chi underwater, bubbles rising as I breathe. Vestigial gills, I guess. I don't come easily to this practice of patience and presence. It is my nature, and my mother's before me, to be several steps ahead of wherever we are. My memory as a small child is endlessly running to keep up. But somewhere along the way, I came to the practice of the small and ordinary. Maybe it was my love of baseball. Baseball is a game of moments. Its timeless quality is what the unconverted refer to as tedium, but we who love the game know otherwise. Each pitch is the opportunity for redemption. Each swing of the bat, both a unique moment and embedded in the strategy of this game and the history of all games. And while it's hard not to thrill to the soaring triumph of a home run when it's your batter in the box, I'm not alone in a particular love for small ball, forgoing the glory of the big hit to put runners on base and advance them in a deliberate, methodical way. Like my Tai Chi. Pay attention to just this thing, just now. I realize this sounds like one of those pay attention to small mundane things and you'll find happiness sermons. And that's not my intention. As one who is so heartbroken, I leave pieces of myself as I go through the world. I wouldn't begin to lecture you on happiness. Not to mention whether happiness itself really misses the point. What I intend to say is both that I believe it is the nature of things and that there is real power in the small and ordinary. In geology, there are erosional features called hoodoos. Some of the most spectacular are in Bryce Canyon and elsewhere in Utah. but you can find examples almost anywhere. I often see them in miniature as I hike. Anywhere there's a soft sandy layer or volcanic ash, all it takes is a small, hard pebble above to protect the softer rock from erosion, creating vertical pillars or rock walls that look like intricately carved temples. And in a sense, they are. The small, otherwise ordinary rock, casting its protective rock shadow beneath it. We all have more power than we know. Like the oft-told story about the starfish on the beach and making a difference, or the much earlier words from 17th century Unitarian Edward Everett Hale, that I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. He continues, because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. When I so often feel overwhelmed because I cannot do everything, I try to remember to play small ball, to be fully present to whatever it is before me. I read once that manners was the small change of morality, that most of us will never be called upon to harbor neighbors from the Nazis or stand on the Edmund Pettus Bridge to face armed thugs. But we all have opportunities to extend kindness, to speak up, or to listen, to open doors, both literally and figuratively. Because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Because it is small, I will not mistake it for meaningless. Anyone who has watched raindrops become a rivulet and rivulets become a stream understands that many small things make a big thing. Small kindnesses, small cruelties. One with the power to renew and redeem, the other to undermine and demean. The pocket change of morality. Time is similar, and I am so often impatient. Some things change in an instant or a single act. Others are the accumulation of 1,000 unnoticed acts by 1,000 unknown hands. Some lives seem big, the people we read about in the newspaper and history books, but it is we, the ordinary people, who persevere, who get up today and tomorrow and the day after and do the thing that needs to be done, even when we're feeling cranky about it, because I've been alive a little more than 2 million seconds. The Grand Canyon formed over 6 million years. Raindrop by rivulet, by inexorable stream, about the same time that our hominid ancestors first appeared. The arc of history is long indeed. Congressman John Lewis said, "Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful." Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is the struggle of a lifetime. In this time, when time itself seems to play tricks on us, and the combination of sorrow and anger so easily breed despair, it is the moments that sustain me. And I have come to think it is all moments, that what seems to be the big stuff is the story wrapped around the small stuff. The first wail, the last breath, the storm bearing down, and the brilliant light when it has passed and we survey our surroundings. Because something is small or ordinary, I will not mistake it for meaningless. Viktor Frankl said, "It is not only through our actions that we give life meaning, but also in our loving dedication to the beautiful, the great, the good." And so I pray that in this day and in the days before us, may we do the something that we can do. May small kindnesses sustain us and small beauties bring us joy. In that spirit, please join in singing, "Wake Now, My Senses."